He was a World Cup winner, an Arsenal Invincible, a winger who just seemed to glide across the Highbury turf with this effortless grace. Robert Pires was on top of the footballing world. So why, when we talk about Arsenal's legends, is his name sometimes a footnote rather than a headline? How did one of the Premier League's most elegant players went from untouchable to almost forgotten? A journey that kicked off with a shocking substitution in Paris and ended in the footballing wilderness of India. How did a player so crucial, so decorated, become a ghost of his own glorious past? To really get how deep that fall was, you have to understand the incredible heights he reached first. When Robert Pires arrived at Arsenal in 2000 for a £6 million fee, he was already a World Cup and European champion with France. He was given an impossible task: replace Marc Overmars, a winger with blistering pace who'd just left for a record fee. Pires was a totally different kind of player. He wasn't a sprinter, he was a dancer. His lanky frame and that high-socked, slightly pigeon-toed running style looked almost awkward, but with the ball at his feet, he had a balletic grace that almost nobody could match. But Arsène Wenger saw a football brain that moved at lightning speed, even if the legs didn't. Wenger had wanted Pires for years and knew his quality. He gave Pires the one thing a player like him needs to thrive: freedom. Pires would later call Wenger a second dad for giving him the confidence to just be himself. Slowly, then all at once, Pires didn't just adapt, he transformed. He didn't try to beat the league with power, he outthought it. He wasn't a traditional winger who hugged the touchline. Instead, he became a pioneer of the inverted winger role, drifting in from the left onto his stronger right foot. This simple tactical shift was revolutionary. It threw defenders into chaos. Should they follow him inside or hold their position? It opened up space for the overlapping Ashley Cole and, most importantly, forged one of the most lethal partnerships the league has ever seen. By the 2001-02 season, he was unplayable. He led the Premier League with 15 assists. He was the creative engine of a team that won the league and cup double. He was so good he was named the Football Writers Association Player of the Year, even after a cruciate ligament injury ended his season 2 months early. And then came perfection, the 2003-04 Invincibles season. While Henry supplied the godlike finishing and Vieira brought the colossal presence, Pires was the team's artistic soul. He glided through games, scoring 14 league goals and providing 7 assists, making him the team's second top scorer. He was an invincible, a hero, a player who defined an era of beautiful, winning football. But in football, the top is a slippery place, and the fall can be as quick as it is brutal. For Pires, it would begin on the biggest stage of all, in his home country, in a moment that would break his heart. The Invincibles were a perfect storm of talent and timing that couldn't last forever. By the 2005-2006 season, the landscape at Arsenal was already shifting. The club was getting ready to move from historic Highbury to the modern Emirates Stadium, a move that symbolised a broader change in philosophy. The old guard was ageing, and Wenger, always looking to the future, was building his next great team. The midfield, once Pires' domain, was being refreshed. In came Alexander Hleb, a tricky dribbler. At the heart of it all, a young Spanish prodigy Fabregas was taking over as the team's new conductor. These players were different, quicker, more dynamic. Wenger's tactics were evolving to compete with the rising powers in Europe. Pires, now 32, was starting to look like a relic from a previous era. His game, built on intelligence and technique, was seen as a step too slow for the high-octane football Wenger now envisioned. His influence started to fade. He was still a key member of the squad, but no longer an automatic starter. This wasn't some dramatic collapse in form, but a slow, creeping obsolescence. The club had offered him only a 1-year contract extension, a standard policy for players over 30, but it felt like a slap in the face to a player of his stature. Pires wanted a 2-year deal. He wanted to feel valued. The contract standoff created a constant, low-level tension. He was still a vital part of the team's incredible run to the Champions League final that season, a run built on a record-breaking defence. Yet, the signs were all there. He was a senior statesman in a younger, faster team. He was the past, and Wenger was building the future. All this simmering tension was about to boil over on the biggest stage of all, in his hometown, in what would be his final, fateful match for the club. May 17, 2006. The Stade de France, Paris. The UEFA Champions League final, Arsenal versus Barcelona. For Robert Pires, this was supposed to be his coronation. The ultimate prize in club football in his home city, in front of his family. After 6 incredible years in North London, this was also meant to be his last game for the club. It was the perfect goodbye. Or so it seemed. The game was just 18 minutes old when disaster struck. Goalkeeper Jens Lehmann came rushing out, brought down Samuel Eto'o and was shown a straight red card. Arsenal were down to 10 men. A substitution had to be made. The backup keeper, Manuel Almunia, had to come on. An outfield player had to be sacrificed. On the pitch, Pires was calm. He later said it never crossed his mind he'd be the one sacrificed. He thought it would be Haleb or the young Fabregas. Pires was the experienced head, the one with that telepathic link to Henry. Taking him off seemed crazy. He was standing there super confident when Thierry Henry walked over. "Titi tells me I'm the one coming off," Pires recalled. Confusion turned to disbelief. "What?" He looked to the sideline and saw it, the number 7 glowing on the board. He described the feeling as awful. It was more than a sub, it was a public statement. In the biggest game in Arsenal's history, in the moment of greatest crisis, Wenger, the man he saw as a second father, had decided the team was better off without him. The trust was broken. As Pires walked off, the world's cameras fixed on his face. He passed Wenger, and the two didn't even look at each other. The coldness of that moment said everything. Pires sat on the bench, his face a mask of fury and shock. It was his last game for the club, a Champions League final in his hometown in front of his family, and it had lasted just a handful of minutes. He felt it was proof the manager no longer trusted him. For Pires, it was a triple blow. Humiliated in the final, his team had lost, and the dream ending was a disaster. 2 days later, he told Wenger he was leaving. Wenger was shocked, but for Pires, a rupture had occurred. That week, in his own words, was horrible. He was subbed in the final, lost the final, and then discovered he'd been left out of France's squad for the upcoming World Cup. The substitution was the final straw. The exit from Arsenal was quiet. Pires joined Spanish side Villareal on a free transfer in the summer of 2006. Back in England, where he'd been a superstar just 2 years before, the move barely made a ripple. He was yesterday's man. Out of sight, out of mind. His time at Villarreal was respectable, but a world away from the glory of Highbury. He joined a talented team managed by Manuel Pellegrini, who had wanted to sign him after Arsenal knocked them out of the Champions League. Pires became a solid contributor for the Yellow Submarine, making over 100 appearances in 4 seasons. He even got a small measure of revenge, scoring in a win against Barcelona, the source of his great pain. But there were no more major trophies, no headlines, and none of the worship he'd known in London. While his old teammates Henry, Vieira and Ljungberg were still competing for major trophies at clubs like Barcelona and Inter Milan, Pires was quietly playing out his career away from the main stage. The man who had been a household name in England was becoming the answer to a trivia question. Hey, whatever happened to Robert Pires? The answer was that he was still playing and playing well, but almost no one was watching. This period at Villarreal, as respectable as it was, marked the real beginning of his slide into obscurity. In the fast-moving world of football, out of sight truly is out of mind. In 2010, at 37, his contract ended. Most thought he'd retire. Instead, he made a bizarre and forgettable return to the Premier League, signing for Aston Villa, managed by his old French teammate Gérard Houllier. It was a move that only highlighted how far he'd fallen. The dynamic, goal-scoring winger was gone, replaced by a player who'd lost his pace. He made just 9 league appearances for Villa and didn't score a single goal. The stint was short and, to be blunt, a total failure. He was released after a few months, and this ghostly return to England confirmed the narrative. The winger of the Invincibles was a distant memory. After 3 years without a club, his career had one last strange chapter. In 2014, at 41 years old, he joined FC Goa for the first season of the Indian Super League. It was a final payday in a fledgling league, away from the bright lights of the Premier League. He officially retired in 2016 at 42. The journey from the peak of world football had petered out into quiet irrelevance. Today, when fans talk about the Premier League legends or the architects of the Invincibles, the same names always come up. Thierry Henry for his explosive talent, Dennis Bergkamp for his sublime genius, Patrick Vieira for his conquering leadership. But Robert Pires, a man Arsenal fans voted the club's 6th greatest player ever, is often an afterthought. So why is his legacy so underrated? Why is a World Cup winner, a 2-time Premier League champion, and a star of the only unbeaten season in modern English history so often overlooked? Part of it is down to personality. Henry had that electrifying star power. Bergkamp had an almost mythical genius. Vieira had the raw, aggressive leadership that defined the team's spirit. Pires was quieter. His brilliance was more subtle, a series of smart decisions and graceful moves rather than explosive moments. He was the artist, and in football, history tends to remember the warriors and kings more vividly. His decline was also brutally public. That humiliation in the 2006 final serves as a definitive endpoint to his time at the top. While Henry, Bergkamp and Vieira all left Arsenal as undisputed icons, Pires' departure was messy. His forgotten years at Villarreal, Aston Villa and in India meant he just drifted from the mind of the average football fan. His career didn't end with a bang, but with a long, drawn-out whimper. And yet, the stats tell a different story. They show a player who wasn't just a supporting actor, but a leading man. In his Arsenal career, he scored 84 goals and provided 63 assists in 284 appearances, a phenomenal record for a midfielder. He was named to the PFA Team of the Year 3 seasons in a row. He was the Football Writers' Player of the Year. You can't truly understand the Invincibles without understanding Robert Pires. He wasn't just a cog in the machine, he was one of its chief designers. In the end, the story of Robert Pires is a brutal lesson in the nature of elite sports. It shows how quickly a narrative can turn and how a legacy can be defined not by years of brilliance, but by a single moment of humiliation. For 6 years, he was one of the most creative players on the planet, a master who helped redefine his position in England. But too often, his story is shrunk down to those 18 minutes in Paris. The image of his number on that board, the lonely walk to the bench, the look of devastation on his face. It was the moment the music stopped. The humiliation didn't just end his Arsenal career, in many ways it unfairly overshadowed it. It cast a long dark shadow over a career that deserves to be remembered in the brightest of lights. He was a true artist of the game, an invincible, and a legend whose contributions should be celebrated, not forgotten. Now, I want to know, what are your thoughts and memories of Robert Pires? Was he a truly underrated genius? Or was his peak just a product of the incredible team around him? Let me know in the comments below.